everyone, this is Danai, and today's video is about Schumann's Fantasy in C major. I'm going to be talking specifically about the end of the second movement, the crazy Coda, which in my opinion is one of the most difficult moments in the piano repertoire. It is a piece that I learned about 10 years ago and a piece that really challenged me a lot. Specifically, this moment that I'm going to be talking about was a big journey for me, playing it in concert and really coming to grips with how to deal with it on stage. But of course, the entire piece in general is really one that made me grow musically, that made me understand Schumann much better. And it just is a piece that is very close to my heart because I spent so much time studying it, so much time performing it. I even recorded it after that long journey. So I'm really looking forward to making this video and to sharing my experience with you. So I thought that today I will not only be sharing my tutorial and showing you my exercises and how I practice it, but on top of that I will be sharing my experience with it, my personal experience, also a horror performance story that I have with it and how I overcame that. So if you're interested in that, then keep on watching. So this is what the Coda looks like. Excuse this incredible mess in my score, but as you'll see in the video, I've had quite some experiences with this Coda and I practiced it a lot. So this is why there are all these markings. So first of all, I practice it slowly as I do with any difficult technical passage. I play the whole Coda slowly and I try to truly feel the length and distance of those jumps. I really try not to just play the note slowly, but to feel it as a jump in the slow tempo. This means that I already try to guess with my fingers where the note is going to be approximately, and I try also to play it kind of blindly. I don't mean not looking at the keys at all, but I mean not looking at the outer keys. So I just focus on the middle section, on the intervals, and I play the outer notes blindly. After that, I play two jumps, one after the other. So always just two and then the next two. And I practice those sections of two until I can really play them perfectly. So in a tempo that feels like it is doable to me, but that also feels like it is on the upper side of things, I play two jumps and then I stop. And if I have one wrong note, I play it again until I get it right 3 times in a row. This is kind of the rule that I gave myself. I need to play it correctly 3 times in a row. Then I kind of feel that it is safe to continue. And I do that for the entire Coda. that, I play through the coda, but the outer notes I always repeat twice. So all the fifth fingers I play twice, and the intervals I only play once. And I do this because I feel that these are the notes that you can kind of rush over because it is the big jump, and because you have to rush back to the interval to get the next jump, to start the next jump. So this is why I try to make a point of playing those twice, so that my arms and muscles and fingers, that they all feel that it is okay to linger there, that it is okay to wait there and to really press that note. In general, with all these exercises, I really try to emphasize the fifth finger and these outer notes, also the octaves, when in the end they become octaves, because I find that this really gives me courage when I play through it in the tempo, to stay there and not to feel too rushed to get back. I divide it into sections of 4 jumps. So I do the same as I did with the 2 jumps. I repeat them if I make a mistake until I have them 3 times correctly, one after the other. Just to change it up, I focus on the inner intervals, and I do one run through in which I don't put all the emphasis on the fifth finger like I did up to now, but I focus on the intervals just to get those right as well. And then I practice it with my hands separately. And then finally, I put it together. Now, these exercises sound fairly simple, but there are many things that I look out for. I already mentioned the thing that I feel the jumps, which I find is very, very important. I try not to think of it as a kind of luck, a matter of luck, if I'm going to hit the note or not. But I try to really make sure that I consciously know where my hands are going. The other big thing is the conscious fifth and finger, or in general, the outer notes. I find that this is also very helpful to maybe think that they are a bit longer, not to think of them as incredibly short, even though when you're playing the run through in tempo, they are of course going to be very short. But when you're practicing, to try to make them longer on purpose in order to really feel like you can linger there and to press them with confidence. And then the other thing that I look out for is that for especially big jumps, I try to take some extra time. So for example, the second jump already I find is a pretty big one and pretty uncomfortable one. So I really try to consciously give myself some extra time for that jump in order to make sure that I'm going to hit the note. Also, towards the end, when we're getting into the octaves, there are some very far jumps, and I just take that extra time. I don't put myself under pressure to play all the jumps in exactly the same tempo. I think it is totally fine to take that millisecond of extra time in order to feel comfortable and make sure that you're going to actually hit the note, and it also musically makes sense. If a singer, for example, would have to go higher than they did before, they would also take a little bit of time to make that jump. Or a string player would also take the time to actually go that distance. And on the piano, we can do the exact same thing. I also try to use dynamics in order to help the whole technical aspect. So I try to really make sure that I open up in the first two jumps and then close back down in the next two jumps, and then when I have the long crescendo, I try to really slowly do a crescendo. And in general, I divide the coda up into different sections in my head. So the first section are the first 8 jumps, where I always look out for the second jump to be a little bit slower. The next section are the next 8 jumps, which are a continuous crescendo. There I really make sure not to rush, but to really keep the tempo, because there's a tendency to rush because it just goes up and there's a crescendo, so you feel like you want to go faster, but I really make sure to consciously not go faster. The next section is the one where the chords kick in, and this is one that I would say, compared to the first and third, and which is the last section, feels a little bit easier. So there again is definitely a danger to rush, so I make sure that I keep the tempo there, because rushing there is really going to get me into difficulty for the last section, which is the whole octave section. That is arguably the hardest concerning the jumps, and there I really make sure to take my time, take it slow if I need to. I focus on feeling the jumps, on getting it right, rather than powering through it in the fastest possible tempo. As I promised you in the beginning of the video, today I'm also going to share my personal experience with this piece. As I said, I started it when I was about 18 years old. I completely fell in love with it. It was a real discovery for me getting into that world, and I was totally into it. So then came the first day that I played it in class, which basically meant my teacher was there and all the students of my class were there. And I played the first and second movement, I guess, fairly okay. And then I came to the coda of the second movement and I completely panicked. I still remember it today. I didn't even know what to do. I was so overwhelmed by what I had to do in that coda, and it obviously wasn't something that I had practiced enough in order to combat that feeling, that I completely panicked. And I just remember starting the first few jumps, totally not making it, then rushing like crazy and making something up and just playing the end. It was completely horrible. And I felt totally ashamed. And my teacher just kind of laughed it off and said, yeah, it was kind of to be expected. This is a very hard moment in piano literature, and obviously you haven't practiced it correctly, you haven't practiced it enough. And he said, after class, stay here and we're going to talk about this. And I remember at that point, hearing my teacher say, stay here and let's talk about this, was not exactly what you wanted to hear. But of course I stayed, and after class, we really took our time and worked on this coda for 2 or 3 hours, for a really long time. And it wasn't even my lesson. It was just an extra time that he took in order to get into that, which of course I'm incredibly grateful for. And he worked on it with me. Not only the exercises, but he also said, okay, now play it and I'm going to be distracting you. And I started playing it and he started throwing his keys around, doing weird things with his keys in front of my face, just kind of talking and really distracting me, which of course made me not be able to focus. And he demanded that I be able to play this coda while he is distracting me, because it needed to be in my subconscious in order to be able to play this securely in front of an audience after having played the first and the second movement as well. So we did that, and then he also said, tomorrow when you wake up, just play the coda without being warmed up, without having practiced anything else, which kind of was unimaginable to me. And of course I did it the next day and it was totally not good, but I did that every day for the next months, and I noticed that I was getting better and better. And not only was I getting technically better, but psychologically I was feeling like I could do it. I mean, if I can play something without even having warmed up and without having practiced it, then I will probably be able to play it after having played something before as well. So I did this whole playing it at every possible moment without being warmed up, playing it while being distracted, and then I of course played it another 10 to 20 times in class. Sometimes we're better, sometimes we're worse, but I started feeling more and more confident, and that feeling of being completely panicked went away. To be honest, it didn't completely go away. I was always kind of scared of that moment, and I think you need to have respect of such a difficult passage. But I knew in my heart that I could deal with it and that I could play it, and that was the important part. So then I played it in my first concert and it went well, and after that I played it in many concerts. And I think it is important to say that there are concerts where the coda went better and there are concerts where the coda went worse. Just because I got it and because I could play it didn't mean that I was immune against getting nervous about it. I think it is important to mention that also if I play it in concert today, of course there is a very realistic chance that I could mess it up, and this is totally fine, and I am aware of that. But I feel more and more confident in how to deal with this feeling. So I just wanted to share this story with you in order to really show that being very nervous about a passage and really messing it up doesn't mean that you should give up and doesn't mean that you cannot play it. Sometimes I read comments under my videos or people just come up and tell me, yeah, I had this concert, I completely panicked and then I never touched the piece again. But I really truly believe that anyone can master any piece that he is afraid of, because I did that, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. I hope that you found this story interesting and maybe that it gives you the confidence to go on with a difficult passage that you might be scared of, and also that it gives you maybe a little bit of peace of mind, because you know that you might still get nervous about it, or not only you might, you most probably will get nervous about it, and that is okay, and that it is just about learning how to deal with it and performing it again and again in class, in front of friends, and then you're going to get it right. I really hope that you enjoyed this video about the coda of the second movement of Schumann's Fantasy, and also my personal story and experience with it. Let me know if you found this interesting and if you'd like to hear more of my personal stories concerning concerts and practice and any kind of performance. And I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!